Thank you for having me. As you heard, my name is Yana Chiuta, and I am a Zimbabwean that is currently living in Botswana. And I am part of a team that's called Coin Madi, which is an African blockchain and cryptocurrency exchange that's currently in pre-launch here in Botswana. So we're very excited about that. Within the next few weeks, we'll be launching that. So we're very big on giving access to cryptocurrency to the local African markets, and then also very big on education as well.
Thank you, Yana. Let's have Jasmine go second.
Hey everyone, my name is Jasmine Brunson. I'm the CEO and founder of Rectify AI. We're a Web3 security and risk analytics platform making crypto more intelligent. A lot of my work I've done at NASA, Maxar was around AI ML. And one of the prime questions I ask myself is why not leverage AI ML to fix one of Web3's biggest problems, which is risk, which is, navigating wrecks and rugs in the world of Web3. So a lot of my work has been in analyzing different types of neural networks so we can detect smart contract bugs before they exploit certain smart contracts, supporting different types of blockchains. I'm here in Austin, Texas. I'm originally from Georges County, Maryland. And so there's a lot of hubs, crypto hubs here in Austin, Texas. I'm tapped in with the Near blockchain, crypto wranglers, ATX DAO, a lot of communities here. And we're just here to do good work in this space so that we can mitigate risk and control the on-ramps and off-ramps in this space.
It's true. Austin has always been the mecca since the early days of the .com. Eduardo.
Yes, I'm Eduardo Jackson, CEO, founder of Cinema Draft LLC. We're a fantasy sports gaming version of the movies company. We have an in-game cryptocurrency called CD3D, which we launched last year. And not exactly sure how I made it to the cybersecurity panel, except I am a Bitcoin and crypto OG from March, April 2013. So I've seen a lot of I've seen the peaks and valleys of not only the crypto space, but also of security. And I guess my recent addition, to this panel was that one of my employees recently had her MetaMask wallet hacked and had her CD3D drained. So I don't know, I guess I can bring some recent pain points about that to the discussion today. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I think part of the reason we mix up the panels and the panelists is so that we're not just doing a presentation for those who are watching, but we can actually learn from each other. So if you don't have a lot of experience in this area, you get to hear some feedback from people who do, and then you get to present your position and whether you agree or disagree. So before we get into the actual panel, I know that a lot of people that will tune in won't have any familiarity with Web3, and Web3 is so expansive and so broad. So if someone had approached you first and said, "Well, what exactly is Web3?" Let's define that first before we get into the cybersecurity issues. So this time we'll go with Jasmine first, then followed by Eduardo, and then Yana.
For sure. Thank you for passing it off. So Web3 in itself is the third iteration of the internet. The first iteration of the internet is just read and write, right? We had HTML text. If you wanted certain types of information pertaining to getting dog food for your dog or getting cat litter for your cat, go to pets.com. Second iteration of the internet, we have more so user-generated content. So that's where we see a lot of people create things on Instagram, Facebook, ads, and kind of leverage social media and I would say networking in general to sell what they want online. The caveat with the second iteration of the internet is that it was leveraged by big data, by big companies. I'm talking about tycoons, the Facebooks, the Amazons, the Googles that mine your data to target ads at you. There's three main applications for data mining. You have targeted advertisements, you have recommendations for cross-selling, and then you have online advertisements. And all this to say is all three of these peak when it comes to money. So now we have the third iteration of the internet, which is the ownership economy, which means that you and I can actually own what we create on the internet and actually monetize directly from our consumer. We leverage the blockchain using this. So this is like what the Web3 space, all encompasses.
And I see a lot of people kind of, at least a lot of corporations and media these days kind of confuse Web3 and blockchain and what have you. And honestly, a lot of the technology they're playing on Web3 is just is basically blockchain technology. But as our dear Deidre, our host, would say, you know, basically a blockchain without a cryptocurrency is just a fancy database. So you have a lot of people just kind of taking the tools of cryptocurrency and just kind of applying it in a fairly, you know, centralized corporate manner.
All right. So my understanding of Web3 actually comes from understanding a bit of what Web2 means to me. So I remember a quote from a movie called The Social Network that stayed with me. I think I watched it more than a decade ago, but then there was a certain statement where a person said that the internet is written in ink. And for me, that's what Web2 is to me. So what Web3 is an opportunity to actually erase that ink. It's actually an opportunity where people get to actually control their own data instead of it being controlled by corporations and so forth. And it also gives people opportunities to actually monetize their data. And if they decide they don't want to monetize it anymore, to actually erase it completely. And that will be done through blockchain technology instead of through the conventional servers that are owned by these corporations.
Awesome. So let's now define, and we're going to start this time with Yana, and then Eduardo, and then Jasmine. And you notice I'm not chiming in. Just remember the order, and we'll keep the conversation flowing. I think part of cybersecurity, or a component of the two forces that are kind of trying to weave themselves together, is this idea of personal identity and privacy as it relates to personal identity. So how do you see in Web3? How do you see this idea of personal identity? Is there a greater risk that we'll have less privacy or more privacy? How do you think that part of the puzzle is going to meld in with Web3?
All right. So I don't want to make it seem too kumbaya, but I think Web3 is a very big opportunity to increase personal privacy and cybersecurity at the locus of an individual because of the way the blockchain technology is structured. We know we've got certain projects that are built around security where you can be anonymous, that are slightly different from Bitcoin, where everything can be traced. These ones are specifically built for being anonymous. So this gives people an opportunity to participate on the internet, being anonymous. So I see it as a very big driver of people being more secure, and also having that option to be anonymous on the internet without actually being traceable. I know there's also a certain aspect of fear of lack of accountability, but I think because you can't trace people anymore the way that you can with Web2. But I think at the end of the day, if we're talking about the greater good and also general freedom of speech, because I come from a place where I come from Zimbabwe, where freedom of speech has not historically been known to be a very big thing that the government advocates for. So sometimes as a citizen, you want to participate, but without also being victimized. So I see Web3 as one of those things that can actually drive that participation and that security and that privacy for people to participate.
And I would say, well, allow me to share my personal paranoia with you. I think that Web3 does give us, and decentralized technology does give us an opportunity to be anonymous, pseudonymous, what have you, because the thing about, you know, blockchain type technologies is that everyone can access them, and you can pretty much kind of, you know, trace transactions and the flow of information everywhere. But it can allow you a veneer of privacy. It's still in the hands of the holder. So for example, with the hacking of my coworker's wallet, I mean, you know, MetaMask, while, you know, we think it's fairly secure, what have you, still is is owned and run by, I believe, Consensus created it, which is a centralized company which is built on Ethereum technology, which is somewhat decentralized but not fully decentralized. So I mean, so my first questions to her were, where did you store your keys? And she said, oh, it's on my WhatsApp. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's, to me, that's online, and to me that is, it's still inherently not entirely safe. Now she says yes, there is end-to-end encryption, but is it in your notes? And still it's owned by Facebook, so my personal paranoia keeps everything that's blockchain or sensitive, offline, like all my, major keys like that I keep, offline, private server, all sort of stuff. And, I don't back up to Dropbox, don't back up to Google, none of that stuff. And so it allows you, so while we do have some of the benefits of decentralized blockchain Web3 technology at our fingertips, still it's up to you to personally secure it. And when it comes to me and my personal paranoia, I do everything in triplicate, separate places, what have you, and I keep all that stuff offline as much as possible. So Web3 gives us the opportunity to enjoy all this blockchain technology, but also security is in your own hands as well. And some people don't want to deal with all that type of personal security, and that is both the pros and the cons of decentralized blockchain technology. Trust no one.
Yeah, just for sure. Going off of what Eduardo said, I really think it is in the hands of the user. I always tell people, if you don't want certain information that's shown to the world, such as what's going on in your ETH wallet or Polygon wallet, what have you, don't send it to people. Don't share it with people. That's one of the major things that I tell people, because at the end of the day, the beauty of this space and the trade-off is both private and transparent. This is the most beautiful anomaly that we've ever seen in traditional finance for years, right? The issue is that when we had typical traditional finance without the blockchain, we can't track the hedge fund managers who were taken off the top in Wall Street. We can't put these guys to light. We can't show the world that, hey, there are some people that's at the top when it comes to these money markets who are manipulating the market, and it trickles down on us as the consumers, as the citizens, and as the homeowners. So I think right now the big question is digital identity, right? Privacy of our digital identities, because best believe, just as we did in Web 2 with these major big tycoons, data tycoons, creating digital identities of you, data devils, I feel like the wallet addresses are being leveraged too. That's why I tell people, do not connect. If you want to, you can decide to connect your PFP to your Twitter if you want to, but it's trade-offs to that, because now you have Twitter who has access to your wallet, and they see not access, of course, but they can see what's going on with your wallet transaction history, and they can match it with certain proclivities. So I'll keep it short with that.
Okay, next question order is Jasmine, Yana, and Eduardo. Let's flip it to the other side. If we talk so much about personal identity and privacy, etc., you still run the risk of large groups of networks that are ne'er-do-wells, let's call them that. And we have this situation in the current web. I think Cloudflare recently took down a right-wing American-based group's website, and there's controversy around that. And we know, so how are people who are building startups, and then they want people to have individual privacy, and then, but now they have a responsibility to make sure that certain groups don't rise. So what's the balance? What can a startup producer do to kind of have this balance between allowing its customer base, for lack of another word, or users to have this privacy, but yet still have a responsibility to government, to community, whether we call it government or community? There's a very real reality, as we know, about January 6th, of allowing so many different voices that are ne'er-do-wells to rise, and there be death and harm to other people. As we as Black people know this for certain. So, what was, your whether you're having a startup or you're going to a company, and then you're responsible for this Web3 product, where's the balance in that?
Yeah, I experienced this in DeFi startup world, and I experienced this, creating my own startup. I think it's a well-needed conversation that project founders and project builders need to have with their communities, saying we have a CeFi to DeFi roadmap. Let's be honest, right? A lot of these projects cannot come out with the promise of being decentralized off the gate. That's not how this works. So I think it's a level of honesty and realness that people need to start bringing to the space. More so, like I feel like with the boom of 2021 into 2022, it's just been noise, shilling projects, saying we're a decentralized, democratized, this and that. No, be honest with your consumers. Talk about your roadmap from centralized to decentralized, because 9 times out of 10, these projects don't come out as decentralized. It takes time. That's what MakerDAO, I think MakerDAO, in my opinion, is one of the most decentralized DAOs in this space. Now, we saw a big boom in the past couple of years with DAOs. We have DAOs that don't have smart contracts. We have DAOs that don't have any type of governance proposals or models. Be honest with your consumers and you will not get burned, is my opinion when it comes to that as a startup founder.
All right. On that point, Jasmine, as a person who has who's a founder of a project where we've had to we've tried to go by the founding principles of cryptocurrency, where we try and give people as much self-custody and also autonomy as possible with our project. But at the same time, you also know that you've got certain responsibilities towards the government and so forth. So things like KYC that need to be done, even though you want people to be private, to be private in terms of how they use their money and how they also use your product at the end of the day. But then there's always that balance that you need to do, and you have to start at CeFi to get into DeFi. But to also answer the actual question about the dangers of certain bad faith actors in using some of these technologies that we're trying to bring into this space. I think some of these things in the initial stages are unavoidable. With every single technology, I think there's always been lessons that are learned and that are improved upon. Maybe in the future there'll be certain applications of maybe artificial intelligence where they can detect these, they can be built into these projects where they can detect certain things that show, for example, there's January 6 uprisings where you can see certain sentiments are leading into a certain way. It'll never be perfect because sometimes you'll block even people that aren't necessarily bad faith actors. But I think that will be a necessary compromise in trying to keep this space as clean as possible or as safe as possible for everybody to be in.
And I love what you said, Jasmine, about the roadmap from CeFi to DeFi, because that's very real. And I think that's actually where at least the US government is struggling, because, by almost by definition, a government, or at least this representative democracy, is centralized by default, and in their taxation system, everything is very decentralized, and they're struggling to not only find the language to talk about, the technology that's far outpaced regulation, but also trying to get their centralized hands on what is started as a decentralized movement. And I think that, at least me personally, with our project with Cinema Draft, I mean, we are a fairly centralized American company, but we do have some DeFi aspects to us with our in-game cryptocurrency. But once again, going back to the hack of my coworker's wallet, I mean, it's part of the trade-off that we had was that in creating a open source cryptocurrency, in-game cryptocurrency for our game, we made sure that we took out a lot of the centralized controls that some people still put into these decentralized app tokens, because we didn't want the appearance of being able to rig the game. I have personally seen bad actors, bad project creators in the space rig it so that they could adjust the taxation of their tokens so that they could cash out but no one else could, stuff like that. So the sad thing I had to relay to them was that while yes, we don't know exactly how they got their hands on your tokens, like that, there's personally nothing I could do as a project creator on the admin side to really punish that actor. So the trade-off between this new almost kind of wild west of decentralized technology is that yes, while we are more personally responsible and we enjoy some technological freedoms and benefits of of the technology, we also can't act as a centralized actor to rein in bad actors. And I hope what you said, Yana and I, one day might be true, that we can at least fine tune the AI enough so that they can possibly, blunt the impacts of bad actors or cut them off at the path before they even get started.
So it looks to me that the future may be very hybrid. As much as we want decentralized finance, we still have this glooming problem that there's not really a clear solution on how to safeguard kids and other issues. So my question this time, maybe just a Jasmine question, but certainly Yana's going to have a perspective from Zimbabwe, and Eduardo can chime in as a owner of a startup. Where do you go for a checklist? If I'm a startup founder and I have an idea, I'm really more on the creative side and the development side. I know what tools are out there. I know about the blockchains, but I want to have that cybersecurity checklist because I don't want to go to jail. So, what are some resources out there for probably the person that's not so cybersecurity adept that they can go to and say, well, I want to make sure that my project has implemented these cybersecurity tools or other things so that it can function the way it should function. So, Jasmine first.
Yeah, I'm going to shout out some of the Web3 security family. I'll start off with Continuum Market. I like what they're doing with AML and KYC. They talk mostly about that stuff, working directly with the lawmakers back home in DC. And I also would say it's a level of doing it's level as a project founder to do your own research, to be quote unquote, I think there's like HIPAA compliance and certain compliances that you have to make when you're creating DApps. Like, for example, some DApps are getting burned by the government because they're not even following the basic rules for neurodiverse people. So how we have alt text in regular, HTML, they're not even putting alt text in their DApps. That's not inclusive for the space. And that's a very pivotal thing that we have to remember when we're creating these DApps, when we're creating these applications. We got to remember that it's supposed to be for everyone. I mean, that's the purpose of decentralization. So I would say there's no real checklist per se that I go to, but being that Rectify AI is a Web3 security startup, we've listed everything from scams in general crypto to scams in smart and DeFi to decentralized storage attacks and what have you. So we have what's called an attack library or attack playbook on GitHub. You can just check us out. And then we also have a weekly radio show. We just had our show yesterday where we talked about Discord best practices for project founders and project creators, right? Admin keys are being stolen by attackers. They leverage, you showing your screen at a very pivotal time, and then all of a sudden they take your admin keys and boom, your Discord is hijacked. 50% of the crypto scams that have happened, specifically in NFTs, have stemmed from phishing attacks. And back in Web 2 world, quote unquote, back in, we had 65% of phishing attacks stem from email. So we're catching up in Web 3. We're catching up to the pillaging that has happened in the past when it comes to bad practices here in crypto world. And I just want people to understand, as a project founder, when it comes to admin keys, when it comes to storing private keys, I can't tell you how many times I've seen different types of exploits happen due to just bad practicing for storing certain, authentication tokens. It's really, really important for that. So I would say it's a level of doing your own research and also mentorship as well.
Okay.
Yana.
So on my, or rather, yeah, can you hear me? Okay, great. All right. So on our end, it was a bit of a trial by fire in terms of understanding a lot of security and cybersecurity and policy issues, because from this end there was not really any any guide where you could really begin to understand some of these issues. Because for us, it first started off as an idea, and then we started slowly coming together to see how we can execute this vision that we had of providing crypto and blockchain infrastructure to the African space. But what ended up happening is that we would consult people within our government. So that was the Zimbabwean government and the Botswana government, to understand that within that particular space, what do they see as things that would constitute proper security for our clients and the citizens in that space. And then as we grew, we started finding other people who were we started getting into different hubs, technology and cryptocurrency hubs within the areas, such as here in Botswana, there's Satoshi Center. In Zimbabwe, there's places like Old Mutual 85 space, where we would find people that have been in this space longer than us, who have also gone through some of the issues that we've gone through. And through that sense of, through that community would end up getting a sense of the things that need to be done for our platform to be secure when it was launched. So initially it was a trial by fire, but then we ended up finding different communities and resources within people. So, and then also with a mix of the internet as well, also just seeing best practices as well of how some of these things are done.
And Jasmine, I think, is correct when she says, you have to do your own research. But I know, especially to newcomers to crypto, it's a little frustrating because they're like, well, where do I get started? And it very much is, like Yana and I also said, a bit of trial by fire. I remember when we were building out versions of our game site, and Deidre would come to me, she's like, hey, these colors, might not be, compliant or ADA compliant. And, so I kind of learned on the job as well. I also think it depends on what genre or industry you're in, what you're trying to do. Jasmine mentioned something about HIPAA compliance. So if you're dealing with any kind of medical records or something, there are probably going to be, some government regulations there. Me personally, from entertainment gaming, there's probably a lot less regulation per se. And as trying to stay on the cusp of innovation, I'm going to try to push innovation until regulation kind of reels us back, or if it's too restrictive, might just have to move. Might just have to move anyway as a Black American in this country, but another story. Still, I think that one of the things that I mean, when it comes to what we're doing on the crypto side, pretty much any project creator that's coming out with any kind of token or open source, anything, is going to want to get audited. I've gone through, I mean, you've probably heard of like the big guys, the Certics and stuff like that. Those are really expensive. I can't afford them. I'm sure, and audits pretty much are just kind of social. And I mean, if you have good developers who are ethical, they're pretty much just kind of social validation as well as technical validation. But as far as the audit company I've recently used for one of our upcoming companion finance tokens, I found InterFi to be very reasonable in price and very quick, and they have a little bit of that social cachet on the security side that you want. And also, I just personally follow on Twitter the Peck Shield account just to see what because they're doing a public service almost by tweeting out hacks and drains and things like that. They're happening in the DeFi Web3 space that are just kind of helpful to know about what's going on in security.
I was
All
gonna
right.
say,
Well, you got. Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say really quick, if you ever need a smart contract audit, come over here. We have some of the best PhD students from Howard University. And then also, as far as Twitter goes, we do the radio show every week on Tuesdays and sometimes on Saturdays. So I would love for you to sit in. We talk about the weekly hacks, exploits, and scams. Tech Show doesn't do that. Just wanted to say that.
Yeah, and we'll keep it black too. We'll keep it black. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with that. I will follow you guys right now.